Hey guys, it's Beth. Welcome back to my channel, and today I am sharing the rest of the cards that I made using my Love and Devotion pad by Recollection. And yes, this is what is left of the pad. I've made good use of the paper and the pad cover. So I showed you all the cards that I made and donated last week to the nursing home, but since then I've made like a whole nother round of cards. So we'll start with some of the sketches that I used. And what I did for this round is I went through, sorted out all of my scraps, and then figured out, went through and pulled out a bunch of sketches that I thought might work. And then when I had pulled out all the sketches, I kind of went back through them and sorted them into like little scrap sketches and then bigger scrap type sketches, and looked for ones that I might have obvious pieces like already ready for. And then instead of I just kind of pulled all the pieces together and then started a pile, and then actually came back when I was done and actually put all the cards together. So I did it, sometimes I do it this way. It goes a little faster that way rather than kind of going through each card and sketch, one by one. And I was kind of motivated to get this done so I could start on something else. And so I kind of did it in that format, and it did. It flowed really well and worked really quickly. So the first sketch here is Sweet Sunday, or the Sweet Shop sketch number 78. And made a few of these, and like I said, I kind of started with obvious ones. I had a bunch of strips left of pattern paper from when I cut, things down to be card mats or, I don't know, other pieces, bigger pieces. I tend to end up with a bunch of scraps that are about that size. So I just took 3 of them that kind of went together, kind of grouped them together based on, what colors they were, and then looked for a rectangle piece that was close to that size, and then, figured out all the other little details. So this is probably the one that's truest to the sketch. So as you can see, it's got these 4 little circle dot elements in the corners of that top rectangle layer. So I just took my sentiment, added it here in the center of this one, and backed it on some pink vellum. And then this was the last piece of this kind of mulberry-ish, pinkish purple pattern paper cardstock that I had, and it was perfect size for this confetti pattern piece. So then I just used the vellum for my sentiment there, and then I added 4 little stickles, red stickles dots, just to accent the corners of that one. So this next one, did the same thing with the strips. This is actually from the pad cover. It was up here next to the Love and Devotion title piece. So I just kind of harvested it from the pad cover, used it as my focal point, backed it on some of that pink vellum, and added my sentiment. And then this one, kind of even simpler. I didn't mat this glitter striped piece, and then I just matted my sentiment on some more of that pink vellum just to help it stand out a little bit. So I got 3 cards from that sketch. This is sketch by Lisa Heidi, H-I-D-Y, card sketch number 10. And so I just cut I had some longer pieces of pattern paper, and so I just cut them down into some stitched circles. And then I had a bunch of strips. I always end up with a bunch of different size strips, so I loved being able to use up a bunch of these together. And then I also made good use of some of those metal puppy hearts that I got from Hobby Lobby, so I used a bunch of them on here. So I have 3 of those that are pretty much exactly the same, except for the strips are a little different. Next is Freshly Made Sketches number 419. And this one, I took my pattern paper, cut it into card mat size, and backed it, or I think I cut it just shy, it may be 4 by 5 1/4. And then I added or maybe 3 3/4 by 5, And then I made my mat here 4 by 5 1/4. And then just kind of put it off, like put it on the card at an angle and then trimmed off the edges. So that's how I got the angle there. And again, this is just some of that pink vellum. I was running out of like brighter pink cardstock at this point, so. And then for my sentiment, I just stamped directly onto some red cardstock. And then these hearts were, I die cut them when I was making the next sketch. I was die cutting some bigger stitched hearts, and so I just did some little ones in the space, the empty space surrounding them. So I got 4 of those, and then this one I just used pink. This is actually from some patterned paper. It's just more of a solid pink, and then a solid red heart. This is my favorite thing, sketch number 370, and this is where I was die cutting the bigger hearts and used that empty space on either side to cut out some smaller ones as well. So these are real simple, just a card mat, the heart, and then my sentiment, which is on this one backed with some pink vellum. So I have 3 with the pattern heart and then 3 with the solid heart, and then I love you is matted with some of that same red cardstock. This is Operation Right Home, sketch number 57. And you just kind of piece some different size rectangles together. And then I matted my sentiment there on the pink vellum on both of these. And this one's, it's pretty much the same thing, but the orientation is just different. And I actually made these before I donated. Like, I made these when I was making the cards to donate, but I didn't donate them because of the sentiment. So this was a cut apart, and I started with it and then based the size, figured out what size I needed my 2 other little pieces down here on the bottom to be based on that cut apart. And these were ones I gave my daughters for Valentine's Day. So there's already, written message in them. And when I gave them for Valentine's Day, I said, here's your card. And then when you're done reading it, I need it back so I can share it. This is another Operation Right Home sketch. It's number 201. And I had these little cut apart, like hearts with the arrows left. And then I had pattern paper that was already, I think these are 3 by 3 squares, and they were really close to 3 by 3, so I didn't have to trim a whole lot off. So I love when I have pieces that like already fit, the sketch. And then this white is actually the back of a solid pink paper. It was a really weird pinkish purple. It didn't match anything else. It's like not a color I have a lot of. And so, and it's thin, it's like, copy weight paper, and so it's not solid core or anything, it was white on the back. So I just turned it over and used the back side as the white side and stamped my sentiment on it and used it as the little Polaroid frame. Another Operation Right Home sketch, this one is 171. Got a bunch of these when I had sorted, I sort strips, and I usually sort like those that are close in size to each other. So I went through all the ones that were close to 1.5 inches wide, found ones that I could get 2 3/4 inches long with, and then just kind of cut them all down, and then went through and grouped them together. So I had 3 of this pattern that I was able to use together. And since I just backed this one on a pink, I just put it straight onto my white card base, but then added a little strip down here and then a punched heart that matched. Same thing on this one, I backed it on pink, but then put it directly onto my white card base. This one I did put onto card mat and didn't add the strip, just added some punched hearts down here. Another Operation Right Home sketch. I was on a roll with Operation Right Home sketches here. This is number 151. And this one just called for 2 different pieces here. And so I pulled 1 strip of solid cardstock and then 1 pattern paper and tried to group them together that way. And then I did end up adding a little thin white strip because I didn't like the way, it needed a transition, I guess. So I used that white as a transition strip, and then just took some of the scraps that I had and punched some hearts. And then I added my sentiment down here in the corner. Next sketch is Sweet Sunday, sketch number 170. And on these, I again went and found some that were relatively square that I could use, you know, similar in orientation, and I don't know, like they're kind of like a little rectangle-ish, but a slight rectangle, if I'm making any sense. I'm dealing with a cold and my head's fuzzy, so I'm gonna say that's my excuse, even though my brain doesn't work half the time anyway. So, and then I backed this one on some of the pink vellum, and then down here for one of the strips, I just used a sentiment on one of the strips and then a solid for the other one. This one I veered from the sketch quite a bit. I put my sentiment up here in the square, and I didn't have any element here or like the little fishtail banners. I just used a border cut apart piece that I had left and put it down here across the bottom. This one, I used these little envelopes, which I fussy cut out of a border cut apart. And the fishtail strips looked funny coming out of here, so I just decided again to treat it separate, left that in the corner, and then put my sentiment down here across the middle. And then there are some white diamond Nouveau drops, just to add a little extra accent. And then this one goes back to the normal sketch design and using my sentiment as one of the strips. This is SSD 92, and missing one. There it is. I've had the sketch for a while and I haven't used it in a long time, so I don't know why. I always have these strips. I don't know why I don't ever think to use them with this sketch. So on this one, since there's like some red foil effect on the lips and the hearts, I had one little strip left of some red foil that was part of a border strip, I think. And so I just put it on here, used it with this pattern, and then this is what I fussy cut out, one of the border pieces that I fussy cut out those little envelopes with. This time I left it alone on the piece that it was on. I was going to have to add a background to it anyway if I fussy cut it out, so I just left it alone and then added my sentiment down here. And then same thing, just used 3 of the same patterns. This time used a pink strip coming down, and then did hearts, like a dark red heart and a light pink heart on this one with the Be Mine. And this sketch is Freshly Made Sketches number 274. And these I had made with that first round of cards that I was going to donate to, but I didn't want to donate them just because of the I love you sentiment. Didn't feel that it was appropriate to donate to people I didn't know. And so I wanted, this was a cut apart, and I thought it went really well with the chocolate covered strawberry pattern, so wanted to use those together. And then I also put some XO on the inside, little XO strip. So these I can save and I can use for my family next year. Next round of sketches. This one is CPS 217. I've used this one quite a bit before. And this, I had one piece of this kind of tall and skinny chocolate covered strawberries left, and so it kind of made me think of this sketch. And just backed it on some pink vellum, and then I added my sentiment, so very easy. And I didn't add the dots up here because I didn't feel like they were going to stand out very much anyway. This is Operation Right Home sketch number 115. And again, just use some of the scraps I had that were close in size. I don't think they're exactly the same size as the sketch calls for. I did ink the edges in some like pink chalk ink so that they would stand out, and I just put them directly onto the white card base. This is Sunday Sketch 090113, and I just used a bunch of the little scraps I had, just cut them down, and I think they're actually wider than what I had figured up a long time ago, like 1¼ inches long by 1 1/8 inch wide. These are a little bit bigger, but they still fit, so I went with that. And then just stamped hugs and kisses down here, and then did use some red stickles just to add dots on either side of the sentiment. Reverse confetti, sketch number 27. Remember I said that I had kind of pulled the pieces together for each sketch but didn't actually make the card. This is one of the first ones that I had pulled together the pieces for, so it was at the bottom of my pile, so it was one of the last cards I actually made, and I was totally out of sentiments or other pattern paper, anything that I could have used in the center here. So I did go into my silhouette and print out this little Project Life type card, sending loads of love your way. And here is S&S sketch number 6 by Velda S. And just use some rectangle scraps. And then I did add one of my little punched hearts down here just to help that pink or that white and pink confetti pattern stand out a little bit. And yes, Operation Ride Home sketch number 154, the one I always use. I only used it once this time. There's some more I think there's some more of the fussy cut envelopes that I cut out. And then this is Freshly Made Sketches number 157. And just pulled 2 scraps that were similar in width that I could put together. And then I did add some red stickles just to kind of help break up some of that pink in the background. And the last sketch I used was Sunday Sketch 122814. And throughout the project, I had either die cut some of these hearts when I was die cutting other things, or punched out hearts just of some weird shaped scraps that I had, hoping I could use them somewhere. So I had all of these left at the very end and decided to just use this sketch, and instead of circles I had some cascading hearts that were coming down, and then just used hugs and kisses, and I did add 2 of the bigger hearts that I had left on the inside of my card. Then I have a group of cards that didn't have sketches at all. And these heart elements were some embellishments that I made in January when I was trying to use up my label stickers. And I had a big piece of this lip pattern paper left, so I just decided to kind of group them together. I did ink the edges of the heart in the background paper with some red ink just so that they would stand out from each other. And then I did pop the heart up on a couple layers of cardstock just to give it just a little dimension, just enough so that it would, again, kind of stand out from the background, which is the same pattern. These 2 cards I made using this cut apart that says Soulmate, and this was another set of cards that I made during the first round but did not donate them again because felt that would not be appropriate. And I actually gave one of them to my husband, so again, had to tell him, hey, when you're done reading that, can I have that back? But just used cut apart, backed it on some white so it would stand out from this red, and then use another border strip down here with the kiss love words, and then some little hearts, that conversation type hearts that I had fussy cut out from another border strip. This is another piece of the paper pad. At the bottom part of the pad there were like strips of the different patterns that were in the pad, and this was like a shorter section where it had some pad info down here, and so I just took this section, left them together and made it a focal element here. And then just added these hearts I fussy cut out of there was a scrap from one of the cut aparts that I had that had hearts floating out of a jar, and so I just fussy cut some of those hearts out to use them on there. Again, found 2 pieces that were similar in width, and so I just kind of grouped them together and then covered the gap with this little strip that I had left from a cut apart strip. And then I inked everything because I was running low on like a darker pink cardstock, and none of the lighter pinks I had looked great with this one up here. So I just inked the edges in red so that everything would stand out from each other and from the card base, and then this was a little piece left from a border strip. This one just grouped a couple of the scraps I had left together, and then this is the last of the little envelope pieces. Here are some of the little stitched hearts that I had left from die cutting, and then just added my sentiment. And these two cards, I had these strips, when they looked like they would make a full card mat, and they did. So I kind of placed them on here and figured out the border that they were going to leave on the sides, and then cut them down so that they would have that same border on the top and the bottom. And then on this one I just added my sentiment in the middle, and then I had it on and thought that this pink mat needed a little bit of something. This was a scrap that was already like that size, and which worked well for the sentiment. So I have a dark red pin, and I went in and I tried to do some stitching. The fine point of the pin was running out of ink, so I switched to the brush tip, and then it was just giving me like inconsistent, like it was kind of, I don't know what was going on with the pin. So I need to try and go back in and correct some of those thin ones just so it looks a little cleaner. And then this was another piece of the pad cover. It was the other side of the title at the top here. So I just let that be my focal point, and then did again those two strips behind. So, and on the inside of every card I do have pattern paper just to decorate. So I use just about every single little bit of this pad. And in this round there were about 50 cards, give or take one or two. So in total I have over 180 cards so far from this pad, along with some other projects. So this was the last project, and I'm done with this pad. So the next video for Love and Devotion will be the wrap-up video showing you everything I got out of this pad. I'll have to insert pictures of all the cards I donated, but it was a lot of fun. It was fun to do Valentine's, but I am done and ready to move on to something else. So it's funny how I can work on Christmas forever, but after Valentine's I was ready to be done after just one pad. But anyway, all of the sketches will be listed in the description box below. If you have any questions on anything, let me know. Otherwise, I thank you guys so much for your time today, and I hope you're having a crafty day.